lesson today is an introduction to professional arborist tree climbing, and I'm not a professional tree climber, but Nate and Jonathan are. They're both certified arborists, so not only do they know about climbing, they also know about trees. So I'm just going to step out of the way and let you guys go. They're gonna give you some of their background, some of their experiences. They're gonna do some demonstration climbing, and then if you're interested, we'll do a little bit of we'll let you climb up a ladder and then descend with a set of ropes, just to kind of get a little bit of a feel for what this is all about. So, Jonathan and Nate, my good friend.
Take it away, Nate. Hey, thank you guys for being here. My name's Nate Klink. As Aaron said, I'm a certified arborist and I specialize in tree climbing. I work for a company based out of Elkhart. I climb trees every day for the main purposes of either removing them, taking them all the way down, or pruning based on either customer specifications or the needs of the tree. I started out becoming really familiar with chainsaw use right after college, and that took me down a path of fighting forest fires for a long time, and that really sparked my passion for trees and for working outside and working with small power tools. But it meant that I had to travel a lot. I was away from home 3 to 6 months out of the year, and I figured, well, if I learned how to climb trees, I could use a chainsaw every day, and I could be in the same bed every night. So about 6 years ago, I started climbing trees for residential tree companies full time. I do it because I am happiest outside every day, no matter what the weather conditions. I'm not one of those guys that needs to be in an office looking at a computer. And there's always something new to learn. Every tree is a different puzzle. There's always a different reason why you're climbing it. There's always different targets or things that you have to miss around the base of the tree. And just keeps my interest all day, every day. Thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
Can I ask what happened to your shirt? Did his chainsaw get your shirt?
It was it was not a chainsaw accident. It was on purpose. So, no, when I first started climbing, I kind of considered myself a little bit of a wimp. I didn't like to get my arms scratched. I'm not tough like Nate, you know. So I thought, well, I got to wear long sleeves because I'm reaching around branches and scratching my arms all day if I don't. But it's just too hot to wear a full long sleeve shirt, so I just cut the bottom off.
Man, that's pretty.
And
That's
it's been my fashion statement ever since. So,
that's horror, dude.
This is what I wear all summer long. So, yeah.
Hey, you know what? Before we go any further, we should have let you guys introduce yourselves too, because we're a small enough group. So I'm sorry. Why don't we start over? Riley.
Hi, Riley. Hi, Lucius.
Alex.
Alex.
3 Alexes.
All right.
Hi, Alex.
Gabe.
Veronica.
Well, Caden Hodges.
Yep.
All right.
And I'm Christian Lopez. This is my right hand man right here.
All right.
Shit, we move.
Live?
Yep.
All right.
Live.
Thank you.
Oh man, that's our kidnapper.
Okay, sorry.
Our captain.
Let's go back to Jonathan here.
So if I understand this right, this is part of a whole overall kind of junior arborist type, to go through all the different modules on arboriculture and just to get an idea of the big picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, glad you guys are looking into that. We need more people to care for our trees. That's good. I got into doing tree climbing because I needed to pay the bills. You know, it was like in transition between something, and I'm like, well, I've always enjoyed climbing trees. I know the basics of pruning trees. I've done work on my own before, so I'll start doing a little bit of tree climbing and helping people prune their trees, and it just kind of slowly grew until it was a full-time business, and been doing that for it was going to be temporary, but I'm 19 years into temporary, so it's kind of long term at this point. So, yeah, yes.
I have two questions. Yeah, did you know him before you started the?
No.
Did it?
No, that's a nice thing about getting involved in tree care professionally. You get to make lots of connections with other people in the same industry. So, got to know Nate through tree work and involvement in tree care and stuff like that. So, you get to know a lot of great people, and that's one thing that you hear around the arboriculture industry is, yeah, you know, different businesses are in competition, but we're all working for the same cause. So there's a lot of camaraderie and working together between tree care companies, or there can be if you let it be. And we have a lot of fun helping each other out, trading ideas. Nate was showing me how to tie a prusik for the rope wrench over there today, because I use mechanical devices all the time, and so, you know, we're always helping each other out. So yeah, so I just started out developing a little bit of tree climbing business, and been continuing on with that, and now I'm getting more into, since I've been in it a longer time, it's called plant health care. So it's not just being reactive trimming trees, but how can you help trees be sustainable for the long term? What are the things that you need in the soil for the trees to be healthy? And then managing diseases and pests that could you know, kill the trees. So that's actually a lot of what I'm doing today with different customers. So I don't have my chainsaw pants on like Nate does. But, so that's a quick introduction. Any direction on what you want to do next?
So I think maybe you guys want to do some climbing demonstration right now?
Sure.
Just to kind of demonstrate to them how you do what you do.
Yeah. Let's have Nate, you can run up your rope, and then we'll
All
talk
right.
a little bit about general climbing stuff.
So let's
What you gotta do is you gotta get your rope in the tree after you figure out what your job is, and you figure out that the tree is safe enough to climb. At least once a week I have a homeowner asking me, how did you get your rope all the way up there? Well, it's very simple technology. It is a thin little rope with a beanbag on the end, and you can whip this thing hundreds of feet into the air and isolate where you need your rope to go. You want to?
How about you just give a throw that direction so they can see how it works.
So with minimal effort, I can whip this thing.
Do it as hard as you can.
100 feet easy. And that's how I get my rope up into the tree there. So once we get that rope into the tree, we can tie our climbing rope onto it and whip it over the branch.
Come closer, you guys.
Come in close so you can hear.
This way, up.
So while I'm getting suited up here, I'll just explain a couple of different things about stuff that I'm wearing that makes me look weird. The first thing is these really baggy snow pants looking things. These are actually Kevlar pants, and they're chainsaw resistant. So if I nick myself with a chainsaw that's running, it'll protect my legs. You can't stitch up chainsaw wounds. They don't cut, they tear you to pieces. So always a smart idea to wear these. This is called a single rope ascent technique. So I've got a rope going over a branch in the upper canopy, and I've got one side of it tied to the base of a tree, so that I've got this with all this tension on it, and I can just walk right up this rope. But so I don't have to use all of my upper body strength, I use a couple of things to make it a little bit easier for me. And one is this foot ascender here, and it's got little one direction hooks in it, so that I can put this on the rope, and I can only move up. And then when I stand on it, those little hooks grab into the rope, and I can use my legs to help me up there. When we're climbing a tree, we always want to have a handsaw with us, to get any debris or like, you know, things out of the way that are gonna poke us in the eye or prevent us from getting to where we need to go. And in addition to the rope that you're using to ascend the tree, we also have a different rope that goes from hip to hip, and we place it around the trunk or a branch when we're going to be making a chainsaw cut or a handsaw cut. That way, if we do end up nicking a rope with our saw, we've always got a backup tie-in point so we're not going to fall and hit the ground. All of this
describing a lot of safety stuff, right?
Yes. It's a very dangerous job, but that's what makes it fun. So, basically, what I got going on here is the only thing that's preventing me from falling down this rope and hitting the ground is this little 10mm rope right here. And I've tied wraps and a knot around this rope so that it catches when I want to sit back onto my rope and move throughout the canopy. If I didn't have this piece on top that's bending the rope a little bit, this green rope would get so tense that I wouldn't be able to break the knot on top, which is required to come down. So basically, I'll do one more wrap up here. The way that this knot is tied, the rope can move up the other rope freely, but as soon as I like fall or sit back on it, it grabs it because of the friction with these wraps around it.
It is pretty neat.
It's super smart. Super smart.
And it's handy that it keeps you alive.
Yes.
That's the most important part here. So I'll just demonstrate how I access the canopy of a tree quickly here. Just in case there is some dead branches up there that might fall and you guys aren't wearing helmets, why don't everybody, let's just take 5 steps backwards. Oh, I forgot to mention this little harness that I'm wearing here. I've got a little mini carabiner on it that I can hook into my ascent device, and that way when I step up the rope, it kind of helps bring it with me a little bit. And I don't only have a right foot ascender, I also have a left foot. It's called a knee ascender. And this way I can use both feet to walk up the rope. And with minimal effort, I'm moving up the canopy. Basically that's how we access the tree, and then from here, if we're going to make any cuts, we use our side lanyard to tie in twice. And if I was removing these limbs right here, I've got both hands free and I can do that safely.
Nate, why do you go through all the effort to go up the rope when you could just wear spikes and climb up the trunk of the tree?
It's a good question. I've I've got an example down there if you want to talk to him about it.
Did everybody hear the question that Jonathan asked?
Has everyone seen these before? These are climbing spikes. Put them on your feet, and the spike goes on the inside of your foot. So then you can just climb up a
It
tree.
goes
Has anyone ever
inside your
seen
foot?
like people climbing up a pole with these, or
Yeah.
so? Don't you think it'd be easier just to put these on and climb up the tree trunk? Yeah, but you got a rope around the tree. Anyone got any ideas of why we go up the rope instead of using the spikes on this tree?
You don't want to damage the tree.
You're on the right track. Basically what's underneath the bark, the cambium layer of the tree there. Yeah, that's right. Because every time you put the spike into the tree, you make an entry point for insects, possible diseases, bacteria, things like that. So when we have a tree that we're trimming and we're not removing, we don't want to put any extra cuts or punctures in the tree. So he went through all the work to set a rope so he could climb up the rope so the tree remains uninjured.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent demo, Nate.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So should we do like a MRS demo too?
Sure, yeah.
Let's go over to this guy over here.
Okay, I need to go.
So the first method was static rope technique, which is, right, we have one side of the rope base anchored to the tree and the rope never moves, you move up and down it. The other technique is called moving rope system, and you can see here we're still over a major crotch, but as I walk up this one and it grabs, this end gets shorter. So basically it's like a self-tightening knot that just gets smaller and smaller as you go up. The advantages are you don't need any fancy ascent techniques, and the friction of the rope moving over that branch there allows me to pull myself up and just hold my body weight with one hand. So I can just do that, and then I tend my knot, and then I can just hang there. The disadvantages are with the static rope technique, I take one step and I move one step up. But for this, since it's doubled up over here and it's moving, I pull myself 1 foot this way, but actually I'm only moving 6 inches up the rope because there's 6 inches on this side and 6 inches on this side.
Do you feel like you're flying?
Only when you fall. But you also need way less gear to climb this way, so it is the most economical and usually like the first way that you're introduced into tree climbing. You know, all you need is a couple of carabiners and a pulley and a saddle, and you're good to go. Jonathan, you gonna give us a little demo?
Yeah, I'll go over there, but like he was saying, when you're first starting out, you're thinking of cost. When with less gear, you can also do the same thing like that with the other end of the rope. So you don't even need any additional gear, and this is, you know, how I start off, and you probably find plenty of this too, but you just make a knot and then you leave yourself some extra tail, and you use the extra tail for your friction knot. And I'm just going to do an overhand knot for now, but you can use this tail of the rope to make your friction knot. And you come around behind the rope and back up through the coil, and it does the same thing that all the other knots that you've seen so far do. It just grabs the rope when you sit down on it. So now you sit down on that and it's holding, but if you just put a little pressure on the top, you fall down. And then you don't need any extra equipment. You can just use a knot on the rope. And then if you want to get some really good exercise, you can do foot locking, where you wrap the rope around your feet and then stand on it to push yourself up. Like that. But it takes a lot of effort. And particularly, like Nate was saying, with moving rope system, you got to do it twice as much to get yourself up the tree. So, and then you got to get your foot pressure right on the rope, and then you're always lifting your feet up. You can see why people move to mechanical devices, because that's a lot of exercise. And when you're climbing the tree anyway, you don't want to be all worn out by the time you get to the top of the tree. You want to actually be able to work when you get up there. You know, the workout isn't supposed to be getting up to the tree. The workout's supposed to be the work you're doing on the tree. So that's another type of device to hold you on. This is what I use over here a lot. Come on over. So this is a mechanical device that just does the same thing that all the knots do that you've been seeing. It just pinches the rope. So this is called a unisender. What Nate was, oh, you didn't use the rope runner pro over there. That was a rope wrench. With the rope runner is over there. That's another mechanical device. But this device is a single rope system, and I don't have on my ankle ascender, so I'll be doing the up again. But this is now that it's single rope, you get more motion.
Do you want this move still?
No, it's fine there. So now this is just pinching the rope, just like all the knots were. But it's a mechanical device, so you don't have to tie it every time. And you can insert this mid-rope. To get down, you just squeeze these together, but once you hit a certain point, you drop pretty fast. So this is made so you can spin the rope around it, then it releases, but then you've got a coil of rope to kind of tend your friction, and you can let yourself down pretty slowly. And it's nice because it's mid-rope attachable. So you can just put it on. And how I've secured this rope is with a alpine butterfly knot. You can just put mid-rope, then you can pass the other end through it and run it up to the crotch of the tree. So then you're not running a rope through the crotch of the tree, everything's stationary. If you get a lot of rope running through a crotch of the tree, that can create like a rug burn or a rope burn on the tree if you run a lot of weight through it. That's more important for rigging when you have a branch, you cut it off and you're lowering it by a rope. Because then you're running a lot of rope through, and you need to run a rope through a block so that the block is like a pulley that all the friction's coming on. But that's an example of that's called a canopy anchor. We had a basal anchor over there where the anchor was around the tree. This is a canopy anchor. Here's a fun fact for you with climbing. It took me forever to get this down. If you're using the basal anchor over there, and let's say you weigh on a heavy day, you ate a lot of breakfast, 200 pounds, just for even numbers, all right? If you weigh 200 pounds and you're going up the rope on that tree, and it's over a crotch way up the top, how much force are you putting on that branch that the rope is going through? You're actually putting 400 pounds of force on that branch. Forever, that did not make sense to me. But if you weigh 200 pounds and you're going up this branch here and I'm hanging on it, I'm only putting 200 pounds of force on that branch because it's anchored up there. What helped me understand it was, if that rope was not tied to the base of the tree, how much weight would I need on that side of the rope in order to keep the rope from slipping through? I would need an equal amount of weight to my body weight. So if I weigh 200 pounds and someone is hanging on the other end of the rope, I'd need someone that's 200 pounds in order for me to be able to climb the rope, which means if you got two 200-pound people hanging on the rope, that's 400 pounds that the crotch is holding. Why is knowing that important? Nate, why is that important?
Because you don't want your tie-in point to break off and hit the ground.
Oh, all right, guys, one of the Alexes. What do you think would happen if your tie-off point up in the tree broke and you're climbing up a rope? You end up on the ground, probably hurt and going to the hospital. So it's very important to know some of those things about your anchor points.
Yeah, for our examples that we have down here, you can see we're over 6-inch or larger, branches. So, and we're also working with some hardwoods, so we know those are very, very strong, capable of holding hundreds and hundreds of pounds. But
how do you know this tree's a hardwood, Nate?
it's a white oak.
It's a white oak.
It's the way it is.
See, he knows what kind of tree it is.
Even without the leaves on it.
Oh, even without the leaves on it.
That's how good he is.
So that's another reason it's important to know what types of trees you're working with, because different trees have different strengths of wood.
Yeah, fact of the matter is we are usually pruning complete trees, not just bottom big branches. So with that throw ball technique that we saw earlier, I'm trying to, more often than not, throw in to the tallest, safest crotch that I can hit and know that I can still put all my body weight on that. Sometimes I'm tying into branches that are maybe 2.5 inches in diameter. So that really makes me think about whether I'm going to use that base anchor technique or a canopy anchor. More often than not, if I'm going to tie into something very high and I can't get a great visual on it, I'll use the canopy anchor technique.
How high do you generally go? Or how high is the highest that you've gone?
The highest I've gone is probably like 110 feet. We've got some pretty tall trees around here. Nothing like in California or whatever, but yeah, probably about 110 feet. Most of my day is usually spent between, I would say, 40 and 60 feet though.
And like where he's got that rope run through that oak tree, that's kind of an average tall tree anchor point for a rope. Yeah. Great example over there.
You want to just look at the rope runner real quick?
Yeah, let's go look at the rope runner as a mechanical device.
This is just one more example of a mechanical device that puts friction on the rope. It puts slight bends in it in 3 different places. As I go up, everything kind of springs together and you can see the rope gets straighter, so I can go up, but as soon as I come down, we put these bends in it, just like a regular old knot would do. So yeah, a little pricey, but super convenient, and you can make it work pretty dang smoothly for you.
there's only one right way to use it. I mean, there's only one right way to put the rope through it. So when you see it on the rope, it's like, oh yeah. But then you get handed this and it's like, how does this go? So that's why it's really important to watch the education on it, read the instructions, make sure you get the rope set right, because if you don't have the rope going through the one right way, it's not going to hold you. Or it feels like it holds you, and then when you put a certain amount of force on it, then it slips. So always important to make sure you know exactly how the rope is supposed to go through a device if you're using a device. And that's one reason why knots are great backups. The other reason is when you get weather that's wet, it's raining outside, oftentimes knots work a little bit better. They don't slip. Sometimes mechanical devices, because they're friction and they're static, they can slip when the weather gets wet or operate differently. Whereas knots, they'll just get tighter. That's what I've got. This is what I use for my moving lanyard system. It's basically two mechanical devices that are just friction oriented. And so I can give myself two closed loops and I can move throughout the tree. Each side here can clip in, but it's one continuous rope, so I can adjust either side and I can always stay clipped in while I'm moving throughout the tree. And it's long enough, if I'm within 20 feet from the ground, I can drop to the ground with it too. And this is the older style that I have. And this is what I use when I try not to, but when I'm trimming trees in the rain. I don't like to be climbing trees when it's raining because you lose a lot of friction on the branches. But these are the Prusik knots, and when everything's wet, I'll use these because they will set and they will hold better than just the mechanical friction. Because that releases just as you tip that back and let it go. So this also provides me with a way to quickly be clipped in twice. When I'm doing small pruning jobs, climbing around in a lower tree, I'll just run up with my double moving lanyard system and I can clip in twice, make cuts, and keep going. Any questions so far?
So, Jonathan and Nate, one thing that I'm listening to, and I've been around you and other climbers for quite a while, and like I said, I'm not a climber, but I'm wondering, can you give us an idea of how much time you worked at this, you practiced this, before you began to feel competent or comfortable in what you're doing?
For me, I was fortunate enough to have really, really great teachers. I trained under a guy who actually got his climber certification in Wales and then did an internship for 3 years in Australia and then was the head tree climber and arborist for an arboretum in Hawaii. So he had experienced climbing every different type of tree, smooth bark, whatever. You know, he was climbing 200-foot eucalyptus trees in Australia and stuff. So
Wow.
I was fortunate enough to have a teacher like that, and I probably, even though I called myself a tree climber, for probably the first like 8 months of being on a tree crew, I just watched it and I just tried to soak it in every single day. And after that, it was probably 2 or 3 years of climbing 4 or 5 days a week until I felt like, yes, I could be a crew leader. I can show up on a job site no matter what the tree, no matter what the conditions of the weather, and 99% chance that I can get the job done. So yeah, right around like 3.5 years probably.
And I would say it's probably similar or slower for me because I didn't really start with a long-term plan in mind. So I didn't start with training myself for a particular goal. So it was, I mean, I grew up just climbing trees, you know. I never knew that tree trimming was an option. I just climbed trees because it was fun. And I didn't have ropes and harnesses and stuff like that. So that was my tree climbing experience. So adapting to ropes was actually really different for me, with different style, and you used the rope rather than the tree in a lot of situations. But yeah, it took, years of adapting to be like, all right, now I feel comfortable. This is how I use the ropes and everything like that. So it definitely takes a while, and it really accelerates the process if you find someone to teach you. There's programs now where you can do intense training to really immerse yourself in the skills. Yeah. Quick safety thing since they're right here. This is a pair of chainsaw pants when they're new. This is a pair of chainsaw pants when they're used. So you can see they get all beat up and you get little nicks in them, and I've sewn these up a couple times. But and you gotta sew, there's a specific way you have to sew them up, because the material on the inside has to stay loose and free and able to be pulled out really quickly, because it's loose material that will pull out and jam into the chainsaw, and it stops the chain from spinning because it all gets jammed up in there. So if you would just sew the pant leg together and you sew that material in place, it might not function when you really need it to. So that's how you repair them is really important. But as you can see, little nicks and scrapes happen, and if you just got a pair of jeans on, a little nick and scrape, there's that much space between the material and your skin. A little nick and scrape is usually going to include your skin underneath. So chaps is what you do, what you hear in the chainsaw safety, but when you're tree climbing, I was talking to Nate, I don't think it's actually required yet for tree climbers, but it would be wise. Totally recommend. If you're going to be climbing, use chainsaw pants, because then you won't get stuck up in a tree with a leg bleeding out.
Yeah, you can imagine when you're using a chainsaw in the tree, you can be in some pretty awkward positions. So better safe than sorry.
And these are chainsaw resistant boots. Obviously nothing is proof, but it will slow it down a lot, hopefully enough time for you to react and not cut your foot really bad. They're a little bit bulky, but I figure it's worth the extra effort. I still have both of my feet and all of my toes work, so I'd say it's been worth it. That's some basic safety stuff. Helmet, whenever you go up the tree, you always got to have a handsaw. I like to wear mine on my leg. It's just what I got used to. I also carry a pocket knife on my carabiner too. Part of the reason you have the handsaw is if you get in a situation where you have to cut a rope in order to get yourself out, you need to have something other than your chainsaw that can cut as well. So, okay. Do you want to?
You guys want to put some saddles on and get some hands-on experience?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Let's have you jump up here first. This is a simple one. All right. Go ahead and stand up. Let's see, where's this coming? Let me move the ladder that way just a little bit so you don't have to bump against it on the way down. All right, go ahead and stand up the ladder. And we'll start low to the ground. Okay, take a step down.
Down?
There you go, yep. Then just kind of slide off this way and swing off. There you go. Good, good. So,
Nice.
So that's the thing. This is on the bridge here. So that does, it might be a little bit out of reach. I shortened it up. See if you can reach the top of that knot. Yep, slowly pull down. Yep. There you go.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. You can just push it up like that. But if you want to bring this up, lots of times I just put another carabiner on it, hook my thumb on it, and that's all you need for right now. And I just put a thumb on it, and then just hold it up. Basically, you're just holding this up to pass the rope through. If you want to actually try to climb the rope,
I really want to try to.
you really want to try to, then you're going to need this down, and you're going to have to do foot locks or something.
Maybe not so.
Yeah, because this is not double rope, it's single rope. if you're climbing, you either got to hold all your upper body up here, or you got to stand on it to hold the pressure underneath. One or the other.
Do you remember how he tied his feet together?
Yeah, you loop over and loop over and loop over, yeah. So you pass it around one foot, and the other foot comes up over top, and then you step on it on the top of your foot with the other foot. Yep, and then you step on your foot. So you pinch the rope between both your feet. Yeah, yep, because then that friction gives you something to stand
And you
on.
want to be kind of like down, right? So like
Right,
push yourself
and
up.
when you do it, you want to pull your knees all the way up so that when you can stand up and lift yourself up the
I
rope.
would get it like this, and then I would step.
Yeah, it'll lock. You can just hang on it. Go ahead and just hang on it. Just hang. Like, take both feet off the ground. Yep. Lift up. There you go. Now you want to lift your knees up to your chest, and then get your other foot on top of there. Yep. And you pinch the rope with that foot, and then you stand up.
Much part of my
Yep. There you go.
Bring
Nice.
it
You gotta pull yourself up the rope.
Yeah.
This is where you keep your thumb hooked there, so that when you lift this hand up the rope, you take that with you.
And then when
Yeah. Easiest on this rope. Wrap it like that. That gives you the most control.
now it's never down there.
Yep. If you want to try to work on your foot locking, do that one. The best is to learn to run the device is jump up on the ladder and then give yourself a couple times. That way you're not trying to learn both things at once. It tends to be overload on the brain. Learning is best when you can focus on one thing at a time. So just go up a couple rungs. Yep. All right. Now sit down into that.
Sit down on it.
Yep. There you go. Okay. Now take the rope, wrap it around there, and you pull down there.
Like this.
Yep. There you go. Now you're holding yourself. You don't have to hold on to that. Just here, and slowly let the rope slide through your hand. Yep. Keep your hand stationary. Don't feed your hand up. If you feed your hand up, you can get it pinched there.
Okay.
You just slowly loosen your grip and
So I
like
sort of
this.
slowly like loosen it like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Loosen that down.
I've
Let's
got
slide
lots
down.
of rub burn.
I like using gloves.
Yeah, that way it doesn't give you
But
hands.
also,
Okay, now you can sit down.
sorry.
Yep, keep your hands below. Yep, there you go. Okay, now you wrap it around. Reach below my hand. Yep.
Yeah, so if you do the
Now
the one around
pull
your
your
waist
arms over
first,
here.
then
There
it's
you go.
easier to get the
Below
other
my
feet
hand.
out.
There you go. And let it slide through your hand. Don't let your hand come above here. Let the rope slide.
Behind. Yep.
There you go.
And then
Slowly
through.
let go. Yeah. Yeah. Let go. Okay. There you go. All right. Now that's tipping you a little far back there. That's because these red straps could be tightened a little bit. That'll help hold you up here. See if we can. Okay.
Pull them fairly tight.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do is we can, to keep you more upright, we can anchor you into the center D-ring on this side.
Yeah, being upright is a lot nicer, and like especially if you're up there for a while, it's exhausting to always be like.
This will change the feel of how it sits. It puts more weight into your waist than the legs, but it's a little more upright. So let's try that. Go ahead and step up a few.
Yeah, careful of getting your foot caught.
Okay, go there. Go ahead and sit down. There you go.
Good.
All right. So, again, around this side. I'm going to capture that little L. Yep. Now, keep your hands below my hand. Yep. Pull down. Right there. Now let it slide through. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, I thought a bunch of bees just went in.
All right. You want to try it higher once more, or is that good? That's good.